Good evening. You're watching AWANI Tonight with me, Saraya Mia. The main suspect in the gruesome murder of teacher Isikoma Ahmad Rozi has been charged at the Magistrates Court in Alur Gajah with murder. The accused, Muhammad Fazli Arif Fazila, a former teacher, nodded in understanding after the charge was read out before Magistrate Teo Shuyi.
No plea was recorded as the murder case is under the jurisdiction of the High Court. The accused is charged under Section 302 of the Penal Code with the murder of Istiqomah on the side of the road in Kampung Tanjung Rimau Luar in Alur Gajah between December 26, 2023 and December 31, 2023. If convicted, the accused can be sentenced to death or jailed for a minimum of 30 years and a maximum of 40 years and given 12 strokes of the cane. The magistrate set October 22nd as the next case mentioned and disallowed bail for the accused. Istiqomah was reported missing in December last year. Police identified her earlier this month after piecing together her dismembered body parts that had been found in January.
The Pahang Palace has lodged a police report against Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin over his comments concerning race, religion and royalty 3R. The Perikatan Nasional PN chairperson allegedly made the remarks in Gua Musang during the recent Nenggiri by-election campaign.
Private Secretary to the Crown Prince of Pahang, Tengku Hassanal Ibrahim Alam Shah, said that the report was filed at the Kuantan District Police Headquarters on Sunday night. In a statement, Tengku Hassanal expressed his anger and disappointment at Muhyiddin's action, who he said deliberately questioned the duties and role of the Sultan of Pahang when he was the 16th Yang di-Pertuan Agong. Citing a TikTok video, Muhyiddin was heard claiming that he had the support of 115 MPs, which, if true, would have enabled him to form the government after the 15th general election. Meanwhile, Muhyiddin on Monday defended his remarks, denying that they were intended to mock the royalty. He said his speech in Nenggiri was a factual statement that was not intended to insult the institution of the monarchy or contain any seditious tendency.
The government has launched the new Economic Transformation Plan 2035, called Putra 35, that aims to uplift the impoverished Bumiputera community. Economy Minister Rafizi Ramli says the initiative will prioritize the economic development of Bumiputera without compromising the rights of other ethnic groups.
Rafizi added that the Bumiputera still face significant challenges today, especially in terms of wealth inequality and their involvement in low value-added work. He said poverty among the community remained high, particularly in Sabah, Sarawak, Kelantan and among the Orang Asli. Putra 35, he said, aimed to raise the status and dignity of the Bumiputera by focusing on three core pillars: strengthening the country's economic foundation, strengthening governance and institutional harmony, and upholding social justice.
Meanwhile, parties involved in the procurement of military assets and construction of military facilities will be rotated every 3 years to prevent misconduct. Defence Minister Datuk Seri Muhammad Khalid Nordin says those involved will not remain in their positions for long to ensure the process is free from corruption and abuse of power.
He said this measure aligns with the advice of the Yang di-Pertuan Agong, Sultan Ibrahim, who urged the government to improve integrity in military asset procurement. Khalid stressed on the importance to follow the government's recommendation to rotate positions that determine military asset specifications. On Saturday, Sultan Ibrahim said the country's sovereignty and dignity would be compromised if military officers were involved in corruption and abuse of power.
The Immigration Department is targeting employers who hire undocumented migrants. It has conducted nearly 12,000 operations since January this year, arresting more than 29,000 undocumented migrants along with 900 employers.
According to Immigration Department Director General Datuk Ruslin Jusso, the migrants were detained for various offences under the Immigration Act, including overstaying, not having valid documents and illegal entry. He said there is a growing number of undocumented migrants working under these circumstances who are being hired by employers. Ruslan said that the new focus was now on identifying these employers, adding that they could face action under Sections 55 and 56 of the Immigration Act for harbouring undocumented migrants.
We'll go for a quick break. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. 2023 marked the deadliest year on record for humanitarian workers. What is more concerning, 2024 is on track to be even worse. On World Humanitarian Day, world leaders were asked to make the protection of health facilities, health workers, and the people they serve a priority. Nur Hafiza Samsudin from Viva Palestina, Malaysia, talks about the safety of aid workers in Gaza in the hopes of bringing more awareness to the issue.
So to date, the latest numbers are, there isn't even a latest number actually of the number of humanitarian workers who have been killed in Gaza since October the 7th. The number that was released by the UN most recently is more than 280. So we don't even have a specific number of humanitarian workers that have been killed throughout this onslaught. Having contacts there and being in regular contact with people in Gaza is very painful. It's a privilege, I know, to know these people and to be continuously working with them. But it honestly brings tears to my eyes to witness the mass indiscriminate killing every single day, every hour. They're not safe at night. They're not safe in the day. There's no safe zones. You talk about humanitarian workers, 280 have been killed. But the ones that made the most headlines is, I believe it was April 1st, when 8 to 7 humanitarian workers were killed, the ones that were volunteering with the World Kitchen. Yeah, and that too because I think 7 out of 8 or 6 out of 7, one of those numbers, were not Palestinians. So they were Polish, they were German, they were British, there was even an American, if I'm not mistaken. So that is what is making headlines, and that was the most noise that we've heard being made. Unfortunately, till date, even doctors are being brutally murdered. They're being abducted, they're being tortured, but we don't see public outcry on things like that.
As the war enters its 10th month with over 40,000 Palestinians killed, Nur sends a message to Malaysians to do more to help the Palestinians.
But I also do understand that there is donor fatigue amongst all of Malaysians. We are also faced with a cost of living crisis right now. So the amount of probably monetary aid that we can give is probably limited, and that's fine. This has been going on for so long. But I implore everyone to try and do as little as they can, maybe write to your MPs, ask them to voice their objection over what is happening in Parliament. What that does is that creates an internal pressure in our government system so that our government then knows that there are a lot of Malaysians that care about this, care enough to write to parliamentarians. So maybe we should be taking a stronger stance. Maybe we should be doing a little bit more. Though I do know our government has done a fair amount, including allowing in 128 injured Palestinians, which is a great start. But I think there is a lot more that we can do on a global platform. Other than that, I think boycotting is a very powerful tool. Think about where you're spending your money, where you're spending your valuable ringgit. Is it in an organization that supports genocide? Is it to an organization that aids and abets genocide? So your spending power is extremely powerful. Other things you can do is, I know there's weekly protests now in Kuala Lumpur. If you're based in Kuala Lumpur, you can go down, make your voices heard, stand in solidarity with everyone else. And I guess pray, make lots of dua, hope for the best. And if you're in positions of power, then I implore you to please start doing a little more.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken, who is on a visit to Israel, says the latest Gaza ceasefire deal could be the last chance to end the Israel-Hamas war. Negotiators from the U.S., Egypt and Qatar met in Doha, Qatar last week to craft the latest version of the deal, and discussions are expected to resume in Cairo later this week. Blinken, in a meeting with Israeli President Isaac Herzog, said the new round of negotiations were probably the best, maybe the last, opportunity to get the hostages home, to get a ceasefire, and to put everyone on a better path to enduring peace and security. He then met with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. In a separate statement on Sunday, Hamas said Israel had placed new conditions on a framework deal that hampered progress towards reaching an agreement. Blinken says he was also working to ensure that there was no regional escalation amid concerns over a possible attack by Iran on Israel following the assassination of Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh in Tehran in July. In other news, Thailand's former Prime Minister Thaksin Shinawatra attended his first hearing in a royal insult case at a Bangkok criminal court today. His appearance came just a day after he received a royal amnesty, which ended his commuted one-year sentence for corruption, allowing him to be released 2 weeks early.
The two-time former Prime Minister and the de facto leader of the ruling Putra party was indicted in June by prosecutors under the stringent lèse majesté law that protects the royal family from criticism and a cybercrime law. The charges stem from a 2015 interview in Seoul following the coup that ousted his sister Yingluck Shinawatra's government a year earlier. Thaksin's next hearing is set for July 2025, with a total of 7 sessions planned. His court appearance also follows the recent appointment of his daughter, Paetongtarn, as Thailand's new Prime Minister.
Britain has activated an emergency measure to hold suspects in a police station cells until prison beds become available. The Ministry of Justice says the plan follows long-standing capacity failures and recent outbreaks of disorder among the far right.
The plan, known as Operation Early Dawn, was activated for the north of England early on Monday. Under the new temporary measure, suspects will only be summoned to court if a cell is available in one of the more than 100 prisons across the country. The government said the arrests of more than 1,000 suspects over the violence aimed at migrants and Muslims had worsened the prison capacity crisis. Britain has the highest incarceration rate in Western Europe. The number of prisoners has increased since the pandemic due to longer sentences, court delays, and a requirement for serious offenders to serve at least 65% of their sentences behind bars. Last month, the Ministry of Justice said violence and self-harm in prisons has risen to what it described as unacceptable levels. Under plans announced by Prime Minister Keir Starmer in July, most prisoners will be eligible for release after serving 40% of their sentence behind bars.
China and Philippines have accused each other of performing dangerous maneuvers in the South China Sea. This comes after their vessels collided during a confrontation at the disputed Sabina Shoal.
Philippines said 2 Coast Guard vessels were damaged by China's aggressive and unlawful maneuvers while they were on their way to supply Filipino personnel stationed in 2 occupied islands. Beijing, however, said it took controlled measures after vessels ignored warnings and illegally entered waters around the shoal. The 2 countries have had repeated confrontations in the vital waterway in recent months. Monday's incident was the latest flare-up after Beijing and Manila decided last month to try to manage disagreements at sea. Sabina Shoal is in the Spratly Islands, claimed by China, the Philippines, Taiwan, and Vietnam. China has continued to press its claims to almost the entire South China Sea, despite an international tribunal ruling that its assertion had no legal basis.
Unlawful and aggressive maneuvers from Chinese Coast Guard vessels.
That's all we have for you on AWANI tonight. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Saraya Mia, and we'll see you again next time.